Hi there, welcome to Plant Daddy Podcast, where we are going to be doing our very first video tutorial talking about orchids. We're only really going to focus on the Phalaenopsis right now because they are basically the most common orchid that you're going to encounter. This is a beautiful one from Trader Joe's. As you can see, this is what they look like when you buy them. She's already lost a few flowers, so it's a perfect time to repot. As you can see, she is planted in a plastic temporary container in mostly or probably entirely sphagnum moss. So this is a mix that's going to degrade rapidly, and it's a really great time to get her in something a little bit better. Similarly, I have this one that I have needed to repot for a while, but was saving for today. And there's a lot of fresh, green, healthy roots growing. So I know that it's going to be a perfect time to get this in a new pot. We're going to show you how to mount and pot these. And a mounted orchid can end up looking like this. We talked about it on the episode that we just published, but I just wanted to show the way that the roots really grow beautifully on these plants that are grown as an epiphyte in your own home. So we'll show you how to do this ourselves. And we are all set to go. I will begin by repotting this one. The first thing that you're going to do, because this is a very loose, soft plastic, I'm literally just going to cut this off. I can be very careful of the roots this way, and just by splitting the pot, I'm able to peel it back like this. The roots themselves, you'll see this one obviously just came off. This one is mushy. You can see the inner core there with the vellum that I just peeled off. And your goal right now is just to gently prise it apart so that you get access to the whole root ball. Take your time doing this because the roots are very brittle and fairly fragile. When you've cleared off as much of this as is easy to do just with your hands, you can swish it in a bowl of water to help loosen anything else. I'm going to take some of these extra long ones and uncoil them so that I can assess the whole root mass. Now that it's mostly cleared, I'm just going to swish it in this bowl of water. This will help to soften and loosen the roots and give you a little bit better of a chance of identifying which roots to keep and which to get rid of. So as you go through, any roots that are thin and frayed like this, they're dead, so you can remove them. You'll do this for the whole root ball, clearing out anything that is dead, anything that is mushy. On some of the particularly long roots, you'll find that there are actually sections of them that are alive, followed by sections that are dead. So when you come across those, just trim them off to where the live root begins and get rid of the dead portion. For any roots that are particularly long and broken, which is kind of unavoidable, you'll notice this particular one is very long, but it has damage way up here close to the plant. So we're just going to cut that off. We're going to do that throughout the entire root ball. So I'm just going to work through this, and you can watch and see how I am making those decisions. Areas like this that are a little bit mushy indicate rot. So you can bring those back up to reduce down to just the healthy growth. And once you're confident that your root system is healthy and the rot has been removed, we are ready to pot it up. So some of these particularly long ones, because I'm going to want to encourage them to branch and grow more roots, I'm going to trim them off pretty close in order to facilitate them growing new roots that will fill the pot a little bit nicer than if they were left long. They're not going to be quite as enthused about reestablishing. So here we go. This is about what you're going to be left with. Now, we talked a lot in the episode about the different ways that you can use substrate in different potting techniques. What I'm going to do is use a mix that is mostly fir bark with some sphagnum moss and some expanded clay pellets, some perlite, and some charcoal. This is sphagnum moss. It is sold packed into large bricks that need to be rehydrated. So to rehydrate, I just put it in some water, let it soak. We're going to be using this mostly when we're going to mount the next orchid, but for right now, I just wanted to get just enough sphagnum moss that I can put this in the bottom of the pot. The reason for this pot only has one drainage hole, which is fine because I want to keep this orchid a little bit on the moist side, but it's a clay pot, so it'll help to dry rapidly. To keep the substrate from falling out the bottom, the sphagnum moss, just tucked right in there, is a perfect way to keep everything in place. So now, you want to gently tuck the orchid in, and you can see that the roots just fill the pot, and the lowest leaf is right at the level where the pot rim is. So I'm going to move over to the potting substrate, which as you can see is pretty coarse, and I'm just going to start dropping some in and using my fingers to just kind of work it in among the roots. Go slowly with this step because you can easily damage the roots. Use a bamboo stick like this one to gently tuck in those areas that your fingers aren't quite reaching. We're going to turn the pot, do this from multiple sides to make sure that the whole thing is well packed. But you do want it to be fairly airy at the same time, so find a nice balance between density and airiness that holds the plant steady in place. As you can see, when I shake the pot around, this orchid doesn't wiggle much, which is perfect. I don't want it to do that because wiggling will mean that any of the new roots that it begins to grow are more susceptible to damage. They can be bumped up against something sharp in the potting mix, and then they'll stop growing. So I just go through until it is level, and there you are. You have a beautifully potted orchid that we're going to water in a little moment. So I'm going to show you what to do with something that's much smaller like this guy. I have this particular little pot that is mainly designed for air plants. It's just a little holder for them, but because this orchid has such a small root ball, it's going to do really well if we just pack it with some sphagnum directly in there. Because it's the same thin plastic, just going to give that a slice, peel it open, and we can take a look at the roots. The sphagnum's not terribly broken down, so it doesn't need a repot right now, but it's going to be just fine if we do. Same process where we just kind of untuck roots and remove substrate. This is smaller and a little harder to work with, so I'm just going to saturate the root ball, and that makes things much easier. So this plant has a fairly healthy root system. The one thing that I want to fix is the length of some of these. So I'm going to trim off some of the broken ones. And then any of the ones that are particularly long, I'm just going to go ahead and cut off so that they're like 3 inches or so, because this is a fairly small plant. And this will encourage it to grow healthy new roots. Because I'm not going to be using this in a pot that will need a stake, I'm going to cut off this old flower spike. That would have actually been great to have kept if I was putting it in a pot and worried about it remaining stable. One more broken root I'm just going to fix. So the sphagnum moss is completely hydrated by now. So what we're going to do is tuck it in among the roots. You don't want the roots to be all bunched up in one spot. You want the moss to sort of work its way through them. And I'm being very careful with the growing tips. There are 3 of them like right up at the top, because I want them to stay green and alive, as that'll help get the plant off to its best start. Then I'm just gonna carefully and gently force it down into its new pot. Little bits of wiggling will help get it there, but here we have a beautiful little orchid that will do really well if it's just sat in a saucer of water, and you can splash it occasionally and the moss will absorb plenty of moisture. Because it's going to dry really rapidly, since it has no sides really, it has all those open spots, it's going to dry quickly, and you can almost leave it sitting in water because it'll dry so well from that position. So for this plant, we're going to do something a little bit more special. It is a similar process where we're going to take it out of its pot. This one's a firmer plastic, so I'm just kind of squeezing gently, gently enough to release the pot. And this one doesn't have a very extensive root system. It's fairly minimal compared to the other 2 that we just worked with, and that's completely normal. You don't have to worry about whether or not there are tons of roots if the orchid's going to be happy. It'll grow the roots that it needs. But clearly there are significantly less here, so we're not going to be doing very much root pruning. What I'm going to look for here, this orchid has a few that have dried out and died. So I'm going to trim these, trimming off a couple of long ones, a couple that don't have any life in them anymore. And here we go, a nice clean orchid. It's almost ready to be mounted. All right. So there's a lot of ways to mount an orchid, and I'm just going to show you the way that I have found works really nicely. It's very tidy, it's very quick. What you want to do is you start with a cedar board like this, and you'll see I've drilled a hole in the top to use as a hanging, and then 6 holes in a U shape. The plant is going to sit here with some moss, and we're going to use these holes to lace the plant to the board. You can also just position the plant, tie twine around it, and call it good. You can also pound nails in around the outside with a little bit of the head exposed so that you can just loop the whether using fishing line or twine to hold the plant in place. But this is a method that I have found that works well for me. I've pre-laced it, and you'll see it's literally just like a shoelace. I started in the back, looped each one over, back, and then through. So with this shoelacing technique, we can then loosen these threads. We're going to position the orchid right there. The way that they grow in the wild is kind of hanging down like this, because the water flows freely away from the crown and prevents rot. That's the most naturalistic way to do this, but we don't have to do that ourselves. You'll see that with this one that I mounted, I chose an upright position. You'll also notice that the flower spray on this orchid has draped downwards in a much more natural position than this one, which was staked upright just to be a beautiful floral display, but this isn't how it would naturally grow. So what I'm going to do, we're going to kind of figure out what the best way to position it. And I like to find like a flat side to the roots, because the goal is to secure the plant on the board in a way that the crown is very close to the wood, so that as it grows new roots, they'll be directed straight towards it and they won't be working their way just through moss without securing the plant in place. So you just want a little bit of sphagnum moss, not very much. Wrap that around what you've determined to be the back side of the plant, which for me is this side, and it's just a little bit. You'll then put it in place and take more sphagnum, and just like we did with the little orchid in that white pot, we're kind of tucking it between the roots and through them. You want to make sure that you have plenty of space for the roots to grow, and giving them ample amounts of sphagnum moss will give them plenty of moisture. So here's what that looks like, really quick and easy. Now I'm gonna just start tightening the laces. I find the lowest two, pull them in. Then I'm going to find the next two in the middle and pull them. If you need to readjust anything, this is the time to do it. And once it's nice and secure, I'm just going to bring this back up the top. And I always just tie it with a little bow because it's cute, but you don't have to. Now I'm going to trim off my excess. And now we have a freshly mounted orchid. If you feel like that's not secure enough, or if the moss is loose, you can lash more string around it. It's just the aesthetic that you're worried about at that point, because by now we have a plant that is very close to the wood that it's going to grow on. Its roots have a large supply of moisture retentive media, and within a couple of weeks, all three of these orchids are going to start growing brand new roots to stretch out and explore into their new space and get them established. During this period, it's really important to keep them slightly drier than you would normally, because you want to encourage the roots to find new moisture. They're going to branch, they're going to grow looking for moisture, and if you keep their substrate wet, they won't be very inclined to do that. It's much better to do that once they're actively growing, after they have a variety of roots. So to water this orchid and this orchid, you can just soak them in any way that you want. I usually take my mounted orchids and throw them in the bathtub and either turn the shower on or put them in the sink, or even a bucket of water to soak for a while, about an hour max, and then I'll let them drain thoroughly. But for a potted orchid, you want to make sure that it's watered very thoroughly. So I'm just going to pour the water directly through the substrate, making sure that I'm getting it on the entire surface, all the way around. And then letting it drain. If you've done it right, the water should flow fairly freely. It'll absorb into the sphagnum moss and the fir bark, but what you've ended up doing is giving it an environment where its roots won't stay too wet for too long, and it'll get plenty of access to the water that it wants. So yeah, thank you for watching our first video. If you have any specific questions, feel free to contact us. We're available on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and Facebook. All of our names are Plant Daddy Podcast. We also have a website, which is plantdaddypodcast.com. So yeah, thanks for staying tuned.